Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my latest overview, review, ramble about the Disney Plus series Hawkeye. First two episodes had a lot going on. Didn't really feel like a Hawkeye show so much as a Kate Bishop show, although Kate Bishop is Hawkeye after a fashion or will become Hawkeye in the relatively near future as they sort of progressively build up to a Young Avengers series at some point. But in this episode, it's pretty good, truth be told. This was a pretty solid episode of the show, or at least of a little bit of storytelling and character building. So, heaven forfend, right? Well, let's get into it. So, first, we start off with a flashback to 2007, where we meet a very young oh god, what is her last name? I apologize. I got to get my character names correct here because I may have read a lot of comic books in my day, but I don't remember everything. Okay, there's a young Maya Lopez, aka Echo. We see her in grade school, and we learn that she is deaf, that she has some facility for reading lips, and that she is very intelligent. She's paying attention to what the teacher's saying and the words she's using and all that, and she's got a workbook, and of course she finishes the workbook before the teacher really asks any questions because she's super smart, super quick, etc. Is she a Mary Sue? It's a little early to tell, and there are some flaws in her, I guess, character in that sense, but yeah, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Anyway, we progress with our backstory here. And sorry, I got to check on something. Live TV, everybody. The wonderful world of live TV. Let's see. Make sure I get everything square here. Geez. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to put the dead air in here. It's just kind of one of those things. Okay, let me try that again. We are back with Maya and I presume her father. And her father's played by Zahn McClarnon, who, if you've ever seen the TV show Longmire, you'll recognize McClarnon as Matthias. Sorry. Again, my brain is halfway into work and halfway into doing this. They are commiserating. We learn that they have a very strong relationship. He knows ASL. She's asking him about, dragons and how the world works and why she isn't in a class with kids of her own kind, as in deaf. And I thought I was going to the deaf school. And he's like, well, you'll learn more things doing it this way. And it seems very sweet, very sweet stuff. And of course, as you can probably imagine, they set this up because, well, something terrible is going to happen. It doesn't happen for quite a while, timeline-wise, but it does eventually happen. Anyway, then we jump over to Maya taking martial arts lessons. And she pointedly watches, and the camera pointedly watches the other kids' feet and movements as they spar with one another. Now, spoiler alert, but there's not really a spoiler here. Maya Lopez, aka Echo, she possesses the ability. I don't know if they're going to classify it in the series as a mutant ability because I don't know when Marvel is going to start employing that term or category. But either way, she has the ability of photo reflexes, I think is the technical term. Basically, anything she can see someone do, she can then copy from memory. So it's sort of like an eidetic memory kind of thing. This is similar to what the Taskmaster can do. The character Taskmaster, at least in the comic books, not so jazzed about the version they put out in Black Widow. When he sees someone's fighting move, he can then copy it and memorize it and do it reflexively with his body without ever having been trained. Now, the downside in Taskmaster's case, which is a really, really cool downside, like every superpower has to have its kryptonite, right? For Taskmaster in the comic books, and I think this is a relatively recent addition to his backstory, for every move that he memorizes of someone else's fighting style, he loses a memory from his long-term memory. So yeah, it's a 1-for-1 kind of thing, which is kind of an interesting downside. If there is a downside to Maya Lopez learning someone else's moves, they have not yet described it here. And off the top of my head, I don't know if there is one in the comic book, so it might not be relevant. Anyway, so she watches them fight. She has a little pep talk with her dad, and then there's something mentioned about an uncle. And then this hand comes down from off screen and gives her a little pinch on the cheek, and she's all happy to see her uncle. Now, who is her uncle? I have a theory, and it's totally based on the comic books, and it may or may not be true. I will get to that presently because there's another sort of sly reference, which I don't think many comic book fans will let go unnoticed, but we'll get there. Anyway, she comes out to fight, and I don't know if I have a still frame here of it, or if I can get to one. Come on. Come on. Okay. Well, anyway, she is missing one of her legs. She has a prosthetic right leg. Now, I don't recall in the comic books if that was true there or if they gave an explanation. And I don't think they gave an explanation here. If they did, I missed it. Or maybe we'll hear about it later. But either way, so she's both deaf and has a prosthetic leg. And it's not a super duper Tony Stark robotic leg. It's just your, decent prosthetic leg. So anyway, so she does her little, martial arts training. She takes the guy down in one move. Everybody's like, oh my gosh. And then we flash forward to where she's an adult and she's sparring with a guy in the ring. And she, of course, then they fight, and she beats him. And she then sort of teabags him, not literally, but, figuratively. And then we jump to this. She drives her motorcycle up to a garage. Now, Fat Man Auto Repair. Why did that jump out at me? Well, see, in the comic books, Echo, Maya Lopez, has a connection and is, I think, either an assassin of or sort of like a family relation to Wilson Fisk, a.k.a. the Kingpin. And the Kingpin's sort of not complimentary nickname sometimes is the Fat Man. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, are we going to see Vincent D'Onofrio showing up as Kingpin? I mean, it makes the most sense. If they're talking about a mystery uncle and we got Fat Man Auto Repair, it was like, maybe. I think that's the heavily implied clue here, which would be great because as far as on-screen Kingpins being represented, Vincent D'Onofrio has done an amazing job as far as I'm concerned. There have been some complaints about how he's been portrayed in the Daredevil TV series in some ways, but I think overall, I really like his performance. Anyway, so Maya comes in on a massacre taking place. We have Ronin slicing and dicing up the mobsters who run this auto repair shop. And the auto repair shop's run by the Russian bros, the bro mafia, as we met in the previous two episodes, and was a feature in the Matt Fraction comic book series Hawkeye. So Ronin is just tearing up the place. And we presume, and I don't think it's wrong to do so, that this is Clint Barton. Clint Barton is killing everybody, as Ronin did during the events of the snap, or during the 5 years snap. So presumably, again, this is all taking place while everybody was dusted by Thanos. So Maya comes into the room and she sees Ronin run a sword straight through her father, and she's there to watch her father die. And so we get very quickly Echo's backstory and her driving motivation for having a revenge passion against Ronin, an understandable revenge passion, because as we saw, her father, while obviously being some sort of gangster and probably not a good guy, he loved his kids. And as we know, if you love your kids, everything else is forgiven, I guess. Anyway, so Ronin went all Punisher on this mafia outfit. And also, meaningfully enough, there is a handprint left on her face as her father dies. Part of Echo's look is a handprint on her face. I don't know if that's a tattoo or just something she does as war paint. I don't know the character's backstory that well from the comic books, but that was, I think, a nod to that. Even though the handprint on her face in the comic books is white, like white paint and not red blood. Anyway, we get a non-opening sequence for Hawkeye, and then we are back to what happened at the end of the last Hawkeye episode, where Clint and Kate Bishop are captured by the Bros and tied to some amusement park horses. Now, one thing that was funny about this, they're hiding out in a abandoned KB Toys warehouse. And as soon as I saw that, I had all these memories like, oh, KB Toys. Remember KB Toys? I'm curious as I watched that, I was like, does Disney own the rights to KB Toys? Was that like a subsidiary of theirs? Is that why they did that or can do that? Or who owns the license that? Either way, that was kind of funny. A KB Toy store or warehouse. Anyway, so they're kind of commiserating with each other, having a little bit of banter. It's okay. It's not that bad. You know, Clint is dour and, I was trying to save you from getting involved in this whole Ronin thing. And then you decided to show up and screw everything up. And she's like, oh. And she's all still being like, hey, I'm your like sidekick. You'd be lost without me. You realize that? And he's like, yeah, I was about to clear your name from the suit. And then you showed up. And she's like, oh. And then Russian mobster guy has some sort of like argument on his phone with his girlfriend. And then he talks to Kate for advice on his girlfriend because he wanted to get Imagine Dragons tickets. And yeah, it's weird, funny-ish. I was thinking it can't be like she's gonna make friends with this guy and he's gonna like do something nice for. Thankfully, they didn't go that route, so that was fine. So there's a little side bit with that guy. Doesn't really pay off. It's not. I don't know. I don't know if it's setting something up for later. We'll see. Anyway, Clint has kind of like given up, and Kate is just like, "Hey, see, you can trust these guys." Talking about stuff. And then Julius from Van Helsing, because I can only think of him as Julius. I don't know what his character's name is in here, but if you've seen the TV series Van Helsing, he's Julius. So I just think of him as Julius. He gets all ticked off. And then, finally we meet the boss. The boss of the Bros is now Maya, apparently having inherited it from her father, more or less. And behind her is Kazi, who is the, I don't know, love interest / best friend or consigliere, I guess, for Maya. He knows ASL and translates for her. Maya notices that Hawkeye has a hearing aid, and she starts, trying to speak to him in ASL. And Hawkeye's ASL is still not that great because he's only still learning, so he can't really communicate that well. And she recommends that, you'd probably operate better if you didn't have that thing in, just give into it, basically. And that's a sentiment I've heard of before, where totally deaf people take exception sometimes to people who either attempt to fix their disability or supplement it. I've talked about this with Blind Press a couple of times on some TED Excellences. So I wonder if Echo is a deaf purist, or I'm not quite sure what the term is, but something like that. Anyway, so she's asking them, like, how do you know Ronan? And Clint makes up a story. It's kind of a Darth Vader story. He says Ronan is dead. And she's like, who killed him? And he says, Black Widow. And I was like, so yes, the man that was Ronan died and Clint Barton took back, it's etc. So yes, he says that Black Widow killed Ronan. So there is no Ronan to chase anymore, and you need to leave this girl alone, etc. She's got nothing to do with this. Look at her. She's a kid. She couldn't have been Ronan from back then. And Clint is casually testing his restraints here to try to find a way out. And she flashes back to her father dying because that's her prime motivation for wanting Ronan dead, obviously. And then she like attacks and starts strangling Kate uh, out of memory of her father dying. Because I guess right now, Kate is the focus of her Ronin hate. And for no rational reason, she just starts trying to kill Kate. And even the Kazi guy, her consigliere, is like, whoa, 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 back up, stop. What are you doing? Because even he's like, realized, like, hey, she couldn't be the one that killed your dad. So don't do that. Let's see. Speaking of which, real quick, who's in the chat with me? Shady Grin, Jaeger Pony, Mike Savage, Colleen Bernier, Red Fawn, Emperor W.R. Costin, Keeverdam. Good morning to you all. Then we have an escape scene. Clint gets out of his restraints, and there's a chase scene, and they're shooting at him, and he's jumping over, shelves and stuff. And they're like, "We want him alive. We want him alive. Don't shoot him." And then we get some action. So actually, good action. It didn't feel inorganic, like, say, some of the fight scenes in The Defenders or Iron Fist or Loki, might I say. It was actually fairly good. Maya and Clint fight, and Maya stomps on his hearing aid, taking away his hearing. So now Clint is hearing impaired in a very serious way. And then Clint jumps on a trampoline into an office, and he finds in the office their bows and arrows that had been confiscated, just coincidentally enough. And so Echo, I'm going to call her Echo, grabs Kate's bow, and Clint has his bow and all of his arrows. And then finally, Hawkeye has a chance to shine, right? Because we've seen Hawkeye in the Avengers movies, little bits and pieces here and there, but it's never been like full on Hawkeye has to stand on his own with his abilities, showcase the fact that he is the, expert marksman, athlete, trick shotter that he is. And we get to see that in full display here, which I really enjoyed. He just starts going all natural sideways, shooting arrows, taking people out, shooting them in the shoulder, shooting their hands to walls, shooting an arrow to break Kate's cuffs or her restraints. It's really fun to watch. I'm like, finally, Hawkeye gets a moment to shine as what he's supposed to be doing. So I appreciated that. And so this fight and this chase goes on. There's some good action moves with Kate going against Kazi. Like I say, all the action, all the martial arts and the fights and everything looked really good, really smooth, and really rewarding to watch. So credit where credit is due there. And then the two escape, and they run out to the parking lot. And Kate's first instinct is to, hey, how about this cool car? And Clint's like, we are not. I'm not smashing a 72 Challenger. Now, the 72 Challenger made an appearance in the Matt Fraction comic book series, so it's a reference to that. So they hijack this POS Cadillac looking thing. Is it a Cadillac? I don't know cars that well. Anyway, so they start taking off, and then the Russian bros chase after them. And then we get, if you've ever seen Children of Men, a completely different movie, but there's a sequence in Children of Men where there's a car chase, sort of car battle, and the bulk of that sequence is told from within the car of our protagonists in a single camera that just keeps rotating back and forth from looking out the back window, looking out the front window, and at the characters in the car. Very famous sequence as far as recent filmmaking goes, or at least a very memorable one for me. And they sort of mimic that here for the next few beats as the camera is inside the car, and it keeps rotating to show the action on the outside and our characters plotting their next move. And I really liked it. This entire car chase sequence is really good. I don't know what else to say. I mean, you'd have to watch it for yourself, obviously, but so Clint can't hear anything, but he's driving, and Kate has to use the bow and arrows, but she doesn't know what arrow does what because he handed her a bunch of arrows that are trick arrows, conceivably, but she doesn't know what they are, and she can't communicate with him to ask him what's going on, so she just has to take it on faith. So she just keeps pulling out these arrows. that have different effects. She shoots one arrow and it makes a whole bunch of goo clobber up on the windshield. And then after that, Clint's like, okay, use the putty arrow on the tires. And she's like, okay, could have used that information previously. And so it's kind of this fun comic, yet very well put together chase sequence. With this, there's a little bit of comedy with the arrows and everything, but eventually Kate like completely nukes this car and kills at least 2 people in that car. There were at least 2 guys in the front of that car, and they are incinerated. So, and the fact that Kate has just killed people really doesn't register at any point in the course of this. Okay, I mean, remember now, Kate is 22. She is a wannabe superhero, and she just blew up at least 2 guys in a truck on a road, and that's never referenced. It's never touched upon as a character moment or a realization of exactly the reality she has fallen into. Because everything up to this point has kind of felt like, oh gosh shucks, golly gee whiz Batman kind of stuff. But they never touch on this, which I didn't like that. There should have been something to that. It didn't have to be, long and prolonged, but it should have meant something, and it didn't. And that's, if there's one, at least the first major flaw that I can think of as we go, that's the one. So she blows up this car. The chase continues. It's all, like I say, it's all really good action. It's all really well choreographed. I believe it. Like the speed and everything. And it doesn't get over the top until one point we'll get to in a moment here. So the arrows being used, the effects, the crashes, the action, I really enjoyed it. I don't have a whole lot else to say about it. I can't really summarize it any better than that. And then we get to the bridge, and they get stuck on the bridge because there's traffic, and they sidewise the car in order to avoid crashing into the stuck traffic. And then we get a little bit of, comic book comedy. Clint pulls out an arrow that is obviously a trick arrow of some kind, and he hands a regular arrow to Kate. And he just tells her, aim high so that the arrow is dropping down on top of them. And so she aims up. Let's see if I can get the frame on this. Are they going to show it, or can I find it? Maybe not. Okay. If I can't find the exact frame. Oh, there it is. Okay. So it's hard to see here because it's a little out of focus, but on the arrowhead, it's all techno and it reads PIM, P-Y-M. And so many of you might know what that means. And so he shoots the arrow, the PIM arrow at the regular arrow. And let's see there. Let's see can I get the frame? Oh man, it's really tough to find a single frame on this thing. Anyway, unfortunately, I can't show you that. But here, the PIM arrow makes the regular arrow gigantic, and it slams straight into the truck and destroys the truck and blocks the road. So now there's a 300-foot arrow just sticking into a major bridge in New York. A comic book, right? It's comic book. It's fine. It's fine. And then the 2 of them have to dodge more bullets, and then they escape by jumping off of the bridge, and we get the classic Hawkeye turnaround backwards grappling hook shot, and they swing onto a train, a moving train. This is where it starts getting, beyond in a comic book territory, but at least they built up to it over the course of the action scene. Like, it wasn't just ridiculous comic book thing after comic book thing. There was they earned a little bit of craziness right at the end, and it was all right. It was really fun. I'll say, for whatever else it might be, the chase sequence and everything was really fun. So then they escape on the train, and then Clint is back at their apartment or the hideout or whatever, and he still can't hear anything. We get the sense he can't hear anything, and then his phone is ringing. But he doesn't know who it is, and so he and Kate have to go back and forth as he's talking without hearing who's on the line, and Kate having to write notes to him so that his son doesn't get scared. And it's a nice, sad, sort of touching thing where we're reminded Clint has responsibilities. He has a family, and he is forced not to be with them when he wants to be with them. This family that he effectively lost for 5 years and slaughtered people in vengeance for, effectively. Uh, it's really, Jeremy Renner does a really good job in portraying someone who is traumatized. Traumatized not only by the things that he's done, but the reasons he did them for, and his dedication to trying to make up for lost time, but also not having a choice in the matter and his sense of duty overriding what he wants to do. It's very good conflict. It's very good character conflict. This whole scene here between the two of them, good character building stuff. All things considered, good character building stuff. So yeah, they do this back and forth with the notes and the phone and him trying to talk to his son because his hearing aid is still busted. He can't hear anything. And so, yeah, they have a nice little moment together. And then we flash back to the Russian bro mafia as they're packing up their hideout because they've been burned. And we get a little interaction between Kazi and Maya, where Kazi's like, you need to calm down, and this was out of control. And she's like, who's the boss here? And he's like, you're the boss. And like, okay, because she's determined. She's like, eh. So yeah, so there he cares about her. Kazi cares about Maya, obviously. She is singularly focused on her revenge. How she feels about Kazi, hard to tell. They're both murderous criminals, so I don't really have a whole lot of sympathy for them. But, it tells us something about their relationship. And then Clint and Kate are in Chinatown for reasons I didn't quite catch, but we're told fairly quickly that they're here to see a doctor who can fix Clint's hearing aid. Seems a little out of the blue and bizarre. Like, this is where you go to get a hearing aid fixed. I don't know anything about getting hearing aids fixed, but anyway, so they go to Chinatown to get his hearing aid fixed. And then we have a diner scene where Kate's talking and Clint can't hear her. And then he reveals he didn't have his hearing aid in the whole time. And she's like, did you have that out the whole time? And again, we get another actually nice character building moment where she's talking about why she put on the suit and how, being the person that helps people is something she always wanted to be. And for a moment there's like Clint having a little bit of pride in the notion and maybe remembering what it was like for him. And he tells her, he's like, there's a price for this life. You're going to lose things you can't get back. There's sacrifices you're going to have to make. And she's like, yeah, well, there's also things you gain, and Clint's like, uh-huh. And and then she starts going back into the branding thing that came up in I think the second episode. And she sketches out what is effectively let's see if I can get the frame on it here. The classic Hawkeye costume. And she proposes this to him. And she's like, yeah, you need something recognizable, an H on your head for Hawkeye, and, like hawk wings around your eyes, that kind of thing. Thank you, Corey Suzuki. For hearing aids, I usually go to my audiologist. I think I pronounced that correctly. Yeah, it just seemed like kind of a odd side quest thing. Like, why her? How did if it was mentioned how either Kate or Clint knew this lady to be a doctor who could fix hearing aids, I must have missed it. But yeah, it kind of happened and then went away. It wasn't a big deal. It was just kind of like, huh? But yeah, thank you so much. And hi, Corey. And then remember that if you watched WandaVision, there was that very famous moment where Wanda and the Vision are talking with each other about grief, right? And there's this, it's manipulative, but it's exceedingly well written and well played moment and a quote from Vision about grief. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I can't do it justice here. look it up on YouTube. It's actually a very, very good, well written, well acted scene. Anyway, so Kate's like, you need to have the superhero costume to like, uh, stand out. And I think it's time and everything. And he's like, well, that's not happening. And she said, well, what if it was all black with a mask? And and right then I started thinking about Zorro. Why would I think about Zorro? Oh, there was a story today where a new Zorro movie is in the works, where Zorro is a hacker in the modern day, an undocumented hacker who's going to avenge his mother or something. Like, that's not how you do Zorro. Are you serious? Anyway, so up and now my phone is ringing. Yeah, no, it's going to be a telemarketer. I don't know why. Every Wednesday around this time, I must be on a timer or something, because every Wednesday around this time, I suddenly get a call from a number I don't recognize, and it's like, your auto insurance is about to expire. We're going to close the file on your auto. It's like, I don't even own a car. So anyway, so Kate starts suspecting that the reason Clint came after her and helped her and is going through all this is because Ronan is someone close to you, isn't it? And you have to protect their secret. And, Clint's like, yeah, well, no, I don't want to call them back. Go away. Anyway, he's like, I'm never wearing a costume like that because one, I'm supposed to be unnoticeable. Two, my wife would divorce me for putting something like that on. And, she, like I said, she brings up the fact that, he gave up spending time with his family because he thought a stranger was going to get hurt. Right. And he stuck, and you stuck around even though I screwed up. And that means something. The tracksuits have connected us both to Ronan, so we're both in on this. And she says, not to mention the fact that my mom may be marrying a murderer. And he's like, yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, we're in this together. And I think I can't find the frame here, but or maybe is it in the next scene? Sorry, there's a moment here between them that is really, really well done. And let's see. Okay. I don't see it here, but within their conversation, Clint starts, I think it was when he's talking about the sacrifices and everything. He's like, I'm not a role model. Right? I don't want to be a role model. I should not be a role model. Because Clint, obviously, he knows what he's done. He's murdered a whole slew of bad guys in vengeance for his family. He lost his best friend, Black Widow. He's done some terrible things, and he's hiding from it. That's the thing. Nobody knows that he did all this stuff, and it's still weighing on him what he did out of anger and depression and rage and everything. What is going on? I don't care about a voicemail from a telemarketer. Go away. Good Lord. Anyway, so you'd have to see it, but the emotion that comes across, what is unsaid by Jeremy Renner about what he thinks about himself, what Hawkeye thinks about himself, very well acted, very poignant, good character building stuff. They talk about the bros, the Russian bros. Clint gives some background on them. How would Clint know this much detail about the tracksuit bros? He also indicates that there is someone above Maya. There's someone beyond and in control of this. Doesn't name a name. He says it's somebody you don't want to mess with. I'm probably Kingpin. So now Kate suggests that, well, if we want to get more information on Kazi and the bros and all this stuff, well, my mother runs a security company, and her databases might have information that could be useful to us. So why don't we go break into my mom's super duper penthouse and get that information? And he's like, okay. So they go off to the super duper wealthy mansion penthouse office place. And then Kate is, quote unquote, not really hacking, but she's getting into her mom's computer and the databases and everything. She does a little coding at one point. And Kazi is related or associated with something called Sloan Limited. And I tried to think to myself, do I remember anything called Sloan Limited from anything previous? And I can't remember anything. And I'm trying to think if there was a character named Sloan. There's also a whole bunch of names on the list here. And there's Kafka. And there was a doctor who ran, was it Ravencroft Asylum? I think it was. It was Marvel's answer to Arkham Asylum, sort of. And the doctor that worked there, her last name was Kafka, if I remember correctly. I don't remember her first name. I think it was like Victoria or something like that. Either way, I thought that maybe was a reference to that. The other names on the list, I can't say for sure. They might be references to other Marvel characters. Hard to say. Anyway, so Sloan Limited rings a bell for Clint. And then there's some noise like somebody's coming in the house that somehow Clint hears, but Kate doesn't. Odd. And so Clint goes to investigate. Kate's been locked out of the account now all of a sudden. She tries to do a little bit of hacking to get around it. And then as Clint is going around the corner, well, the Ronin sword comes up against his throat. And we cut as Jacques has caught them. Now, the implication is that Jack here killed his father, the dead body that Kate found with the Ronin outfit on. Well, no, I shot an elephant in my pajamas. Wearing the Ronin outfit, Kate found Jack's father dead by a sword strike. And so the implication is that he killed his dad. It seems like too much of a red herring, too obvious. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But yeah, so, and for those of you that don't know, this character here, Jack, I forget how you say his last name, Duquesne, is a character called the Swordsman in the comic books. An expert swordsman, if you can believe it. Sometimes villain, sometimes Avenger. Played by, I forget the guy's name, but he plays Lalo in the Better Call Saul series. And he's a really fun guy to watch. It's difficult for me to tell how much of his acting here isn't just being Lalo, because he's kind of, smiley and kind of go-lucky. And save for not having the accent that Lalo does, I just keep thinking of him as Lalo because there's nothing to distinguish him from that character, either in the way that he looks or anything else. So there you go. That was the end of the episode. Overall, a fairly good episode. The action was good. The character building was good. The acting was pretty good. Like I said, the only thing that stuck out to me that should have been more important is the fact that Kate incinerated a couple of people in a van with an explosive arrow. That part should have meant more. There should have been something to that. Aside from her being sort of like shock/wow when it happened, there was nothing after that. And given the amount of time they've spent developing the fact that Clint really has his actions as Ronin weighing on him, on his conscience, I was really surprised they didn't do something similar, or Clint didn't bring that up when they were at the dinner table. Because, like, again, that was the one sort of really, the one flaw in the episode that really caught my brain. That should have had an impact in some way, shape, or form. But that is the episode. And as far as I know, I'll look here. I don't think there was an after credits scene. I always have to check now because in WandaVision, most of the episodes had no after credits scene. And then one episode did. And I didn't watch all the way through to the end because none of the other episodes had one. So I always have to check now to make sure. But yeah, so there you go. Hawkeye episode 3, not too bad. Certainly, as a single episode, better than either of the first 2 episodes, in my opinion, because we didn't really waste a whole lot of time with a lot of setup. The backstory they gave to Echo was informative and efficient. And like I say, the car chase was great. Character building was great. We'll see what happens with episode 4. because, these things tend to go episode by episode. I'll take a minute or here to see if anybody has anything they'd like to add, and then we'll see. Colleen Bernier, Sloan Limited is referencing Walker Sloan of Alchemex, which is owned by Kingpin. Aha! Well, there you go. Another nod to the Kingpin. Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm pretty sure we're going to see Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. There really can't be anybody else who plays Kingpin at this point, given fan love of his portrayal and just his look. He perfectly embodies that character. So yeah, I'm fairly certain at some point we'll have a Kingpin reveal. Let's see, anything else here? A lot of hellos. And oh yes, Kiefer Dam puts up Point Curation's Etsy store for his art. If you're not aware of Point Curation's art, take a look at that when you have a chance. I'll pin it up there at the top of the chat for those of you in the future. I think that carries over into the recording after I've published it, so to speak. And hello, Point. And Useless Rebel, hello. But yeah, so again, mixed bag this series so far. I was expecting every episode to be kind of a letdown, kind of but episode 3 has given me hope. So we will see. But with that, everyone, I'm going to call that here because I have a voicemail from a telemarketer to delete off my phone, and I have work to get back to. So I hope you all had a good time listening to this. Hope it was informative and or entertaining or both infotainment. If you'd like to hear more from me, you can find me tomorrow night on this channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for another episode of TED Excellence, a very special episode of TED Excellence, where we go in already knowing that our speaker is a liar. In what way? Well, we'll discover that tomorrow. So hope to see you then. Until then, everyone, moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated, thank you. Thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. I hope you all have a good rest of your Wednesday. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.